Hey guys, it's Joey and this is this week's Witchy vlog for the Ogham, Ailim or Silver Fir or Pine. If you want a full rundown of some of the meanings, that will be in the connecting video, the drawing. But some of the meanings just to recap for our purposes: initiation, birth, death, far sight, clear vision, truth, justice, honesty, beginnings, purification. Upon pulling this Ogham, I felt I best do the deep purification with a pinecone spell. That video is also on the channel, but if you haven't seen it and you're wondering, it's taking a pinecone like the one in shot in your cauldron and burning it for measures of purification. It's a big, hefty purification spell, and it really just blasts out any negativity. It doesn't smell really great. You could anoint it with a bit of oil and put some herbs in maybe to help the smell a little bit, and it might be one of the ones you want to do sort of in a doorway but outside if you can. That's entirely up to you and how you feel about it, but if you're going to do it, just be careful. It's a good purifier spell, and I felt this was especially important after my glass vial with tourmaline in it necklace had snapped, and I believe this to have been a negative attack, and it basically absorbed the negative working and shattered once it had absorbed it. And I believe this to be the case because it was a small glass pendant around my neck. I was wearing it, and it had no reason to smash. I was not hurt. It didn't hurt me in the slightest. And you'd have thought if I'd have smashed it, wearing it, it being glass, that A, I would have been covered in tourmaline chips, and which I wasn't. They were all over the floor somewhere else. And B, that I might have hurt myself because I would have obviously smashed it against me. But that was not the case. And so I believed it to be negative working at the beginning of the week. And so I did a good purification out with a pinecone. And I really just, it's a really great way of just, you know, protecting yourself, purifying any crap that got past, that sort of thing. I saw a funeral parade on my walk that day as well. There was a man in top and tails leading the funeral procession, the cars. And he had a top hat and tails and a staff, and he was sort of marching and he was bowing to the coffin, and there was a lot of tradition there and pomp and theatrics maybe. And I thought it was really interesting, not only in sort of the scope of the Ogham life and death cycles that were mentioned, but also to see the tradition and the way that people interact with death, and that changes worldwide, about these traditions that pop up and things that get done and acts that get carried out surrounding death. I mean, it surrounds all major life events, but in death in particular, it was really interesting. Alchemy had come up twice at the beginning of the week, mentioned by two of my dear friends, something to look into. And alchemy, being the transformation of one thing into another, has been an undercurrent for the whole of the week. It's not been at the forefront, it's not been like there with the quotes and the bam in your face, but it's been a very, not even subtle, but it's been a very strong undercurrent of a theme this week, which we'll probably see. And that day as well, I'd been seeing pine cones scattered all over pathways everywhere, which is kind of weird given the time of year. You don't expect to see them so much, but I saw them 3 or 4 different places over pathways, and we'll discuss the meaning of pine cones in a minute. I'd also been seeing the number 111 everywhere. Now, I don't normally ingest numbers, really. I don't like numbers very much. I'm not really a number person. In so much as the numerology side, it's interesting, but it never really, you know, hits home with me. I'm much more of a symbol person. The numbers like 3 in the Celtic tradition, they do mean a lot to me. but it tends to go hand in hand with things like the Triskel or the Triquetra, and that imagery comes into mind the minute I say 3, so rather than the numbers by themselves. But that day 111 was everywhere. It was, I looked at the clock and 111, and I had a video up and it had 111 views, 11 likes and 1 dislike. It was on signs as we were driving to the supermarket. It was everywhere. So I looked it up, and it's manifestation resonating with assertiveness, independence, uniqueness, motivations, new beginnings, striving forward, insight, self-leadership, soul purpose, life purpose, and spiritual awakening. It also wants to keep your thoughts positive because you are manifesting them into your reality. And a quote from the very beginning of the week, which I think set the tone for the entire week, was from Aristotle. The high-minded man, in brackets because I'm not a man, must care more for honesty than what people think. And pine cones, as we've mentioned them twice now, fertility spells burn for purification and to rid a space of negative energy. To protect your home from malicious spirits, place a pine cone in each room of the house. So there you go, there's a little bit of herbal lore on pine cones. And another quote, this one by Neil Gaiman, who I love, also has a lot to do with this week. The one thing that you have that nobody else has is you. Your voice, your mind, your story, your vision. At the beginning of the week, I was considering the need to define our paths in terms of colour and the sort of ethical standpoints that we were placing on our paths as if to justify them. Not entirely sure why we need to colour code our spiritual practices as witches. You don't hear other spiritual paths calling themselves white this or that. It's kind of unbalanced. I honestly beginning to feel that the idea of a white witch is actually fairly insulting, because what is the opposite? And when did colour become so loaded with ethical meaning anyway? I somehow feel that this is more of a media attempt, either by the media at large or by us, to show witches as not evil people, trying to justify our spirituality to other spiritual paths, and really it's kind of a poor method. There is good and bad in everyone. It is our choices, morals and ethics that define us, and all humans are shades of grey. And it's like I said in a video earlier this week, you know, it's not the path, it's the way that you walk it. My darling Sharon shared her chant mantra that she came across this week to help dilute negative karma, which was really interesting at the beginning of the week, which was Om Mani Padme Hum. My oils arrived. I ordered 3 essential oils, bergamot, cedarwood and neroli. Bergamot is for balance, joy, strength, money and success, a scent that brings joy and peace to the soul. It amplifies energy, joy and lightens the darkness in the mind. Helps the higher self to be guided. Cedarwood is for balance, rebirth, regeneration, regrowth, healing, protection, purification, bringing balance and steadfastness to the spirit. It encourages us to find our path and helps bring dreams into reality. Can we see a theme yet? Holds the spirit of the ancients, teaching us to hold fast to the earth, as well as neroli, calm, peace, joy, success, money, brings lightness and joy to lift one out of depression and helps to heal rifts, bringing peace to the soul. So these all tie back to those new beginning energies. And talking of new beginning energies, at the beginning of the week I found my mini tarot card, the Fool, on the floor in the bathroom. Not entirely sure how it got there, but that's the energy I'm feeling so far of this Ogham this week, and therefore I've included it into the drawing. The mini tarot set is on the Witchy cabinet. That's also on a video, and they're literally that big. And it was a bit weird that that one by itself had got off the, it's not even a chest of drawers, it's a bookcase, and it's right up the top. And there are like quite a few of these little tiny mini tarot cards in the sort of Witchy cabinet setup, and only the full one was in the back room. So how it got there by itself is anybody's guess. Coming back from our walk, I also found a dried out cedar leaf. I think there's a theme arising here with cedar. Cedar leaf is cleansing on an emotional level. Its Native American traditional use is to carry messages to the divine, to bridge the gap between earth and heaven. Used also with the breaking of the misuse of power or powerful forces having a negative effect, banishes nightmares and eases depression. And then we have the goddess Thurantia, and I'm not going to go through all of that again because that's in the Celtic calling video, but obviously that also tied into the idea of being careful about what information you accept to be true. It's not a goddess that the ancient Celts would have worshipped, instead being introduced much later, and then through the passage of time become sort of integrated into a system, and then it becomes the question of, is that something that we should or should not be interacting with? How much importance do we place on the fact that it wasn't worshipped by the ancient Celts? We need to keep a watchful eye about which information we are accepting as true. That sort of thing. The search for truth. And smacking the camera. Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear. Ambrose Redming. If we do not set personal boundaries and ethics, what does our spiritual practice become? At risk of being wishy-washy and at high risk of abuses in its name. No one can tell you that you must do anything. Giving someone that power as an adult is unhealthy. And I put as an adult here because children, obviously, when things are in a non-abusive relationship with their parents, have to be disciplined and get told what to do, I guess. That's part of parenting, but we're talking in an adult spiritual sense here, so. Free-thinking minds must decide what is honest and what is right and live by those standards. Too often there are excuses for bad behaviour in the name of spirituality because people can't bear scrutiny or discussion and get offended by someone with a different path. The old fail-safe cry of the teenager comes into play here. You can't tell me what to do. There's a crucial difference. No one can tell you that you must do anything, but bulldozing through the world ignoring everyone else's ideas but your own is not likely to lead to spiritual enlightenment. I don't think that requires any more discussion, really. That's my feelings on the matter. About incorporating and understanding different spiritual paths, perhaps, about the idea of sitting there going, you can't tell me what to do, is really unhelpful in terms of spiritual enlightenment, because you're not listening, you're not absorbing, you're not challenging yourself, you're not criticising yourself. And self-critique is a necessary part of life, because you have to criticise yourself, not to the point where you're like injuring yourself, but to the point where you're examining everything you do, your actions and your spiritual beliefs and things like that, to make sure that you're not getting full of it, that you're not getting ostentatious, that you're not getting above yourself, you're not getting full of ego in a matter of spirit, you know. And it's easy to do, especially when you become passionate about something. Then again, there is a difference between trying to set out what you believe to be true, and I guess you can't always what's the right way of saying it? You can't always hold yourself responsible for how people react, because sometimes people react however they want, no matter what you said, even if their reaction makes no sense. Okay, so here is a lovely quote from Caroline Myss. We are not meant to stay wounded. We are supposed to move through our tragedies and challenges, to help each other move through the many painful episodes of our lives. By remaining stuck in the power of our wounds, we block our own transformation. We overlook the greater gifts inherent in our wounds, the strength to overcome them, and the lessons that we are meant to receive through them. Wounds are the means through which we enter the hearts of other people. They are meant to teach us to become compassionate and wise. that's something that I've been dealing with this week. How to move past old wounds, how to not allow old influences to come back, and God have they been trying this week. I had a half-hour conversation with my sister this morning just because of one element of this, and it's just not allowing those people to rip you open and poison you again because they're trying, and to try and not react to those people in the same way, and instead just be like, cut off, no, I'm not having it. To overcome, to transform, to find a different reaction. This is what this next bit, again, I am confronted time and time again by the same issues, the same people who are lying, the same manipulations, the same use of material goods as a basis of argument. I don't know sometimes how on earth I'm supposed to deal with this. I thought this situation had gone. Clearly it's coming back again until you've learned how to deal with it, but it can get quite overwhelming. Sometimes it feels like being surrounded by enemies, by people I don't trust, and the insidious lying nature carries on, and people for it. However, I will not and cannot lie down and die. Sometimes defeat in battle is inevitable, predestined by the Morrigan. I do not deserve this treatment, though, for all my failings. I've reached out to one or two people that I do trust, and I refuse to lie down and die. I will continue to share. I will continue to try and help. And there's actually a quote, a couple of quotes that come later that's actually pertain to that. I'm actually going to see if I can find them rather than read them at the end. One is, you have enemies, good, that means you stood up for something sometime in your life. Winston Churchill. Better to lick your wounds and be battle scarred than kiss ass and compromise your values. Fight the good fight. Amazing Women Rock, shared by Nadia. That was an incredible quote, and I'm going to read it again. Better to lick your wounds and be battle scarred than kiss ass and compromise your values. Fight the good fight. I just thought that was perfect. It was very Morrigan. It was very wiggle the fingers, wiggle the shadows. Sorry, easily distracted, as you can tell. It was just perfect. It was just exactly what Morrigan was trying to tell me this week. I've been mulling around the idea of rain and rain magic. The two quotes, "It never rains but it pours," came to mind, as well as "When the rain washes you clean, you know." When the I'm not really going to sing. I don't really sing like that either. I'm just being stupid. The idea of rain and rain magic is therefore speaking to me, the power of releasing pent-up emotion by the emotional burst of tears. The heavens open, pain is released, the self is allowed to feel, being purified of any negativity that has lingered, wounds empty of poison and are allowed to heal, nourishment of the soul. It's basically a magical answer to the problems that were arising. The herbs and from earlier in the week that seemed to tie into this were obviously cedar leaf and bergamot essential oil to lighten those sadness, that shadows, that difficult. Witches have also always known the special meaning of nature's acts. They are warnings, blessings and magical guides to the living world around us. Rain is a gift from the sky. Never shelter yourself from the fall, but rather accept rain as we should accept life, with all its trials and blessings. The Lady Althea. Rain water is used for purifying spaces and magical items, healing the self, as well as truth spells, which come up again in a bit. So the following quote I actually shared in a video all by itself because it was so potent. This day the Morrigan was talking to me hammer and nail. It was a strong day of spiritual message. She was there, she was full on, and this came through. I will shed all of the skin down to the very bone beneath it, if that's what it will take for you to come to the realization that appearance is not what makes a human beautiful. The quote is by Christopher Poindexter, and it just echoed around my home, around my house. The Morrigan was just like beating on the drum and on my head and making sure I was listening. Substance over appearance was basically how it spoke to me. It was the Morrigan talking to me, through me, for me, around me, woomph. And not only is it about the physical appearance not being what defines a person as beautiful, but it's the idea of substance over appearance. You are not who you pretend to be, you are who you are. It's going back to that quote of, that someone can't take away you, because you are you, with your voice, with your soul, with your spirit, with your creativity, with your brain, with your language. You are you, and nobody, no matter how hard they try, can be you. I went to nature to be healed. I'd been feeling pretty bad that day. I walked amongst the tulips and the trees with their many shades of pink spring blossoms and the bluebells and the little blue flowers on the nettles, and I made a wish on a dandelion. I began to feel better. Then on the village green where the crows call out, there was a crow feather by my feet and a small branch lying there. I knew it was the Morrigan calling me, and I took her gifts and interpreted them, and she has told me to be private about that, so we will. Once I got home, there was a picture of an Arctic fox shared with me, because it had my eyes. And it was getting back to myself, fox being my totem animal. It was also lying on a bed of pine, which of course ties into the Ogham. And so then I wrote this is my own work, Joanne Morris 2014, and shared it again. Finding myself in what matters, watching the pine as it scatters, breathe deep and be true, live only as you. The wisdom of nature is love. Herbs for truth or knowledge, particularly thyme, dragon's blood, mugwort is a good one, clary sage or essential oil, pine oil, nutmeg. That comes into the truth spell, which we have already put on the YouTube channel, so it's already there. A couple more quotes. Be a Fruit Loop in a world full of Cheerios. I will. If I was meant to be controlled, I would have come up with a remote. You are worth more than what someone is willing to pay for you. That is mine. You are worth more than what someone is willing to pay for you. And we will finish up with the Ogham poem, which I wrote myself, all my own intellectual work, all rights reserved, Joanne Morris, 2014, blah 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 blah. I am Ailim, I am clarity, truth of sight, lack of disparity. I am justice, honesty unbound, for lies disperse and negativity ground. I give you vision to uncloud your mind, walk with honour and your path you will find. Wow. Was this week a week? For me, this was one of those weeks about finding yourself thrown into the deep end and coming to such strong spiritual realizations that define you. Truth, honour, honesty, justice, and all of these things are in the Morrigan's name, and all of these things I've always felt strongly bound to. And I come up against situations time and time again, and it seems to be the misuse of material stuff. There's actually another quote which I didn't write down, which was the problem with the world is that people are meant to be loved and things are meant to be used, and the problem with the world is that people are being used and things are being loved. I didn't actually write that in here. I think I will once we have finished with this video for future reference. And I time and come again to the material misuse of things to manipulate people. And it comes first and foremost from my family, and I had an ex who said your family runs like a business and I will never understand it. And those are his words, literally. And that's what it was like. You were only worth what you were bringing in. The money you were bringing in, the items you were bringing in. There was no support. And I'm talking my whole life. I'm not talking I was 18 and living at home. I'm talking as young as 14, 13 even, And the whole use of materialism, material items and money to manipulate was very present right from the get-go. It was how my father controlled everybody. It was how my mother controlled and misused her finances and things and made us feel worthless and this, that and the other. And it carries on today in many, unfortunately, in many aspects. I see it all the time. And it bothers me because of my background, but it bothers me anyway. It's like, you are worth more than what someone is willing to pay for you. You are worth more than that. You are a spiritual soul on a spiritual journey. You don't have to do anything to get somebody's goodwill. You just have to be a good friend. You don't have to be bought, and you have to be willing to acknowledge this and be truthful about who you are and just be upfront, and it's like, this is me, accept me or don't accept me. And unfortunately it's like I was saying at one point to a comment by the Four Queens, that honesty in this world, in this society, often doesn't get you an awful lot of friends, but it gets you the right ones. And that, time and time again, is what I think really matters. It is better for me, and I said this the other day, the other week even, it's better to me to have a handful of diamonds than a field full of cowpat. And I treasure the people that I hold very, very dear and very, very close. And I will always be honest with them, and I'll be honest when anybody asks me anything. So be it, Honesty, justice, learning to overcome our wounds. Wow, this was a week. This was a week, but it was fantastic and powerful. Many blessings.